the ACT has, like I said, 4 multiple choice sections. So those are the 4 that make up your composite score. So when your English score, your math score, your reading score, and your science score are added together and averaged, the score that is resulting is your actual ACT, your composite score. So that's the score you're going to tell people. So, when SATs are out of 1,600, you get 18 or 800 from each section, add them up, you get your total. ACTs aren't like that. They're actually average. So each section is scored out of 36. So you can get a maximum of a 36 on your English section, on your math, on your reading, and your science. And at the end of the day, what they do is calculate your score in each section, their scaled scores in each section, and then they're going to add them all up, average them together, and then it's going to spit out your composite score. So one really cool thing about the ACT actually is that if your average is if it's a 0.5 or a 0.75, let's say your composite comes out to be 32.5 or 27.75. In both of those cases, they would round up to 33 and 28 respectively. So that's a really cool thing about the ACT, is that you kind of have the opportunity to let the sections that you might feel more skilled in kind of weigh into your average and, kind of help give you that extra boost maybe to just get a little bit of a higher score. Because I know when it comes to the actual submission of scores to colleges and things, it can feel like just a couple of numbers make a big difference. And I know that's so anxiety inducing. So this is something that I hope calms your nerves a little bit, to know that you can sort of not necessarily make up for what you've done in another section, but that it doesn't penalize you for being more skilled at that section. Because all of us are. I was personally much better at the English and reading sections than I was at math and science, but it is definitely possible to get a high score on the ACT that you're satisfied with without having the best test-taking skills for every single section. So back to the actual structure. So your English, your grammar section, that is a 75-question chunk of the test. So it is quite a large chunk of the exam, and it's going to give you a little less than a minute a question, or a good bit less than a minute a question, I suppose, because you have 45 minutes to answer 75 questions. And these are all multiple choice. You're reading passages, you're going to revise the writing, edit for proper grammar, clarity, communication, structural, syntax, those sorts of things. Your math section, 60 questions, 60 minutes. So really a minute a question, and they are designed to be able to be answered in a minute. They do go up to algebra 2, sorry, I don't want to scare you, 2 and trigonometry. And I have heard before that the ACT math section goes up to pre-calc, and I just wanted to kind of elaborate on that. So while it tests concepts that might be relevant to pre-calculus, they're not going to be asking you to look at vectors that are completely really, really advanced, or conic equations that are very advanced. So they do stick in the difficulty range and the content matter of algebra 2 and trig. It's just that they might test some content that is also relevant to pre-calculus, but please don't feel like you're entirely behind if pre-calc is hard for you. And your reading section is 50 questions, 35 minutes. That is mainly reading comprehension. Like I said before, it is your very classic English test. And finally, the science section is 40 questions in 35 minutes again. So just like the reading exam, it's going to be 40 questions in 35 minutes. That gives you a little bit under a minute per question. And these are going to be, like I said, interpretation and analysis. So you're going to be doing a lot of interpretation when it comes to things like graphs, like I said, charts, data, maybe data tables, things like that. And you're going to be asked to analyze those diagrams and supplementals with a passage and see if you can interpret that sort of language, basically, is what they're asking you to do. So, yeah. Moving forward, a little more elaboration on how the ACT is actually scored. So like I've been saying, this is an exam that averages together your scores in 4 sections to come up with one composite score. So in mathematical sense. Your English score plays into your actual composite score. It'll weigh for 25%. And your math will be 25% of your final score, your English 25% of your final score, and your reading 25% of your final score. But like I did say, if the average of all of those things comes out to be a number that ends in 0.5 or 0.75, then it will automatically be rounded up to the next whole number. So that's what I meant when I said that, yeah, they are equally weighted in your exam average. So like you do get 25% of your weightage from your reading exam, but let's say your reading is substantially higher than your other scores. Instead of those other scores bringing down your reading score too much, your reading score will probably make your average go up a little bit and hopefully end in a 0.5 or 0.75, and that can kind of kick you over to the next score. I hope that makes sense. My point is really just that while the idea of averaging together 4 scores might be intimidating, it really can work in your favor. All I'm trying to say. Okay, so the highest you can score on the ACT itself, the composite part of the exam, is a 36. So a 36 on each subsection, and then a 36 on the actual composite score overall, because they do divide that final sum by 4. And as for the writing, so the essay portion of it, that's not going to be scored out of 36 because it's not part of the composite score. It's the supplemental score that they gave you out of 12. So let's say you get a 28 on your ACT and a 10 on your writing. They're not going to add in the 10 and average things in. All right. So this is a Princeton Review sourced general curve for the ACT. So the ACT is one of those standardized exams like the SAT that is graded on a rough curve. So you can kind of see the conversion between your raw score. So your raw score is going to be the number of questions you got right. So a perfect raw score, as we can see, is a 75 for the English section, given that there are 75 questions. And the scaled score that is assigned to that score is 36. So you get all the questions right, you get a perfect score in your English section. Pretty simple. As the number of questions you've gotten wrong goes up, so your raw score starts to drop, your associated scale score starts to drop as well. But it does drop sort of accordingly, as you can see. So if you were to plot all of these numbers on an axis, you would see the sort of rough bell curve that is used by most standardized exams. So a chart like this is just kind of useful to know what kind of ballpark you're falling in as you're doing practice tests. You can kind of go through a section, see how you've done, and then look at some sort of rough chart like this just to kind of estimate what you would have scored on the section had it been test day. And that can show you maybe where your strengths lie or do not lie, and you can work from there. So like I said, 36 for each section, and it is averaged together for a total out of 36. All right, I am going to check the chat really quick to see if anyone has any questions. Test anxiety is something really important that I want to address right before I get into the English overview, actually. So I was going to jump right in and start talking about the overview of the exams. But I think that given how stressful this past couple years have been, it feels even more stressful to, I don't know, I feel that all of us have felt more forced to seek that academic validation that comes with doing well on your college entrance exam, getting into a good school, ending high school with lots of APs and a high GPA, all those sorts of things, trying to put yourself on par with everyone else. And I know that can just kind of exacerbate the stress and the anxiety that an exam like this brings about. But I'm going to echo what Pooja said in the chat, and remember that your best is all you need to put forward to succeed. It doesn't matter what your actual score is. The numerical value doesn't mean anything more than how many questions you got right on a certain day. It doesn't say anything about how hard you've worked to get to this point or how skilled you are at any of the sections. It doesn't matter. to say anything about who you are as a person or your capabilities or where you're going to college. None of it. All it is just how many questions you got right on that day. So as long as you've tried your best, that really is all that matters. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but I just want to echo what Pooja said and let y'all know that it's not only is the ACT something that is achievable, it's also not as important as it seems in the grand scale of things. So please don't let the exam stress overwhelm your own mental health. When studying for the exam, I hope you guys are all making sure you're also putting time aside to relax, read, sleep, eat, make sure you eat well before the night of the exam, and make sure that you just keep practicing things that make you feel confident as well. So if you're struggling in your math and science sections, but English and reading are your forte, make sure that you're studying English and reading as well, so you can kind of boost your own morale. And when you're having a harder time with the sections that are maybe more unfamiliar to you, a good way to curb that anxiety is to boost your morale by doing what you do know you're well, or you can do well at, and kind of let yourself remember that you are just as capable as you think you are.